of death is important. And the reason that the cause of, and it is important that every family member in your family tree, right, you should be able to account for the cause of death and the course, right, as in the journey to death, okay? Because an unnatural death must be investigated spiritually, right? And the reason I'm saying that an unnatural death must be investigated spiritually is because it ruptures the family circle of life, and kuvulega umkhokha. You hear that term quite often, and I'm going to explain to you what we mean when we say kuvula umkhokha and umkhokha uyavalwa, right? Because natural death is desirable. Natural death is prepared for by the ancestors, and the person moves onto the transition space, and then from the transition space onto joining the other ancestors. But it's going to explain to you, it's going to make a lot more sense what I'm saying when we get to the circle of life. And then we're going to get to the part, and then murder and suicides are the biggest red flags, right, in the family tree, okay? Murder and suicide, especially suicide, guys, because when you are murdered, it's not your fault someone took your life, but to take your own life needs to be spiritually investigated fully, and you need to be very thorough with that investigation spiritually, right? Because there's a 99% chance that someone else in the family has committed suicide, number one. Number two, the thing is with suicide, it means that there was something grievously wrong in the spiritual and the mental and psychological setup of the family. So if someone is committing suicide, it's showing that there is something grievously broken within the system. In other words, your family. I'll take the question now, right? And then the most important, guys, is to account for the burial procedure. How was this person buried? Did you collect their spirit where they passed away? Was a cow slaughtered or a sheep slaughtered for their passing? Did people cleanse after 30 days? Did you bring them back after a year or so when you were doing their tombstone, right? So all of those kinds of questions are important for you to be able to answer for every single member of the family tree, right? Because here, hold on, just want to get my pen, right? So if your grandmother, if this is you, right, and your great grandmother passed away, okay, by murder, right, and you didn't cleanse it, and you guys went on and on, right? Then that means the people that should be cleansing if this person passes away is the grandfather if they're still alive. These two people must be cleansing as well. This person over here, as well as yourself, okay? And as well as them, right? Assuming that they're all in the same surname, okay? So if this is the person that passed away uncleansed, these are the people that must cleanse. Yabo? Even if you guys find out, oh, the person passed away in 2010 and you did not cleanse them and you did not cleanse yourselves and you did not do any cleansing, you can do the cleansing now. Cleansing and the need for cleansing does not expire. Let's say there's two people in there's two chat box. Please define unnatural death, okay? Unnatural death is anything that is not passing away naturally. In other words, right, if they do an autopsy on you and they say, and they don't write down natural death, and it's in your old age, right? Say at like 70 or 80 or 90, right? Then it is anything other than that is an unnatural death, guys, okay? Yes, I include things like cancer. Cancer should be investigated. Yes, I include things like diabetes. Yes, I include things like COVID, right? I include that as well as unnatural, right? Because we need to see spiritually, was there nothing wrong? I'm not saying that with those cases, 100% of the time, you can expect for there to be something wrong, right? But I'm saying you need to make sure that there's nothing wrong, right? Togoz, I have a strong desire to be cremated when I pass away. Is this acceptable by African culture? Okay, I was going to tackle this towards the end of the webinar, but let's tackle it now. It is dangerous. The reason why you should not be cremated is because when you are born, right, they shave your first head and you've got your belly button. So Tina Zulu, what we do is we take your first head, we take your belly button, right, and we bury it into the ground, okay? The land of your forefathers, okay? And it is to complete the circle of life. Your first piece of flesh or life must be united with the last piece of flesh or life in the same soil, okay? And thus the circle of life is complete because you arrived at this in this world, right? The spirit arrived in a vessel of flesh, right? Therefore, it must return to the soil, right? In the very same intact vessel as flesh. Manja, when you cremate, you are destroying the vessel and the circle of life cannot be complete, okay? So cremation is something that shouldn't be practiced by us as Africans, okay? And on top of that, Bagwet, even using ibhokisi coffin is something that we weren't doing. See, now what we used to do, well, from a Zulu perspective, the cow would be slaughtered, right? And this is to show how intelligent and in harmony with nature our people were in Africa. And they would actually wrap your body in the hide of the cow, right? And then they would put you down on the ground, right? And they knew that that would speed up the decomposition or your body decomposing, because now you're in this coffin, right? That's this amazing vinyl wood and whatnot, and it's polished and varnished and everything. It's gonna take years, hundreds of years for the worms to eat you and for you to decompose properly, because you must return to the earth swiftly. Yeah, and there was a case 2 years ago, right? And I'll never forget it. A young lady came to us and she could not sleep. And the reason she could not sleep is that every single night she'd go to bed and she would feel hot and she was sweating and she'd have extreme heat flashes. Listen, by tongue. In the evenings, okay? And when she came to Dr. Mkhize, and she came to us to see her, right? Her father had been cremated, right? And it was her father returning to her in her dreams to say, Mntanam, I'm sorry, I was not supposed to be cremated. From the ancestors. Please can you slaughter a goat for me and ask the ancestors to forgive me and cleanse me so that I can join them on the other side. Yeah, well. So cremation is fine for you as a living person that's going to be cremated, but the living are the ones that are going to have to deal with the consequences of your cremation. So that is one way that is one way in which the ancestors demonstrated how upset they were that cremation is not for us spiritually, right? But there may be a multitude of ways. Some people have random hot flashes in the middle of winter. Some people can't concentrate. Some people have extreme headaches, right? And it comes from this thing of they are descendants of, they let their father cremate, they let their mother cremate, right? I know a lot of the times our fathers or our parents say, cremate me, right? But when as a living person, you have every right to say, Yazin, ma, bab, I know you wanted to be cremated, but Lando is going to give me problems. So, fagem kotin. Cool, I hope that answers the questions, okay? So there we go, account for burial procedure. Thanks so much for that question, guys. If someone was cremated at home, it's gonna give you problems, right? If someone passed away in another country, if someone disappeared and you don't know where they were, and you don't know where they passed away, right? They just disappeared off the face of the earth. You need to address that spiritually. You can't just do a memorial for them because they're a presumed dead. No, You have to follow through with the process. What happened to this person? Do we need to go see a healer so we can find out? And if so, which healer should we see? Okay. So I say this to you guys for both sides of your family. Don't just only look at the side of the family where your surname is. Look at your father and your mother's side and say, what happened here and what happened here? Because you are a product of both of those